Hi, hello everybody. First of all, thank you for being here today. We're going to start presenting this webinar. We're going to talk about solving the development EPC handover once and for all. So we're going to start right away because we have 45 minutes and we want to make the most of it. Let's introduce Stanislas van der Waren. He's here representing Sitemark. It's doing this webinar with Rated Power today. Hello, Stan.
Hi, Natalia. How are you doing? I'm quite excited here.
Great, same, likewise. Let's start with the introductions. On my side, I'm Natalia Opie, Customer Success Manager for the US market, Canada, and Francophone Europe. I lead the effort in customer success strategies, and I've been 3 years making my clients make the most of the tool that Rated Power provides, that is pvDesign. Stan, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Stan. I'm actually the co-founder at Sitemark. We started 6 years ago, and Sitemark is all about following assets throughout the entire life cycle. So my job was to in the beginning, drive the product a lot, and today I'm much more involved in business development, but also doing things like webinars or conferences like today. So it's a lot of fun.
Wonderful. It's a pleasure to have you here. Okay, so the agenda for today, we'll be talking throughout 30 minutes, and the last 15 minutes or 10 minutes would be for a question and answer session. If you look at your GoToWebinar panel, you will see a question box where you can feel free to drop in any questions you may have during the session. So we will be following these 4 points. We want to talk first about our platforms, Sitemark and Rated Power. Then we will show you a slide that gives you a brief summary of the project lifecycle. So from the conception to operation and maintenance. Then, as you can see here, it says showtime. We will present live both Sitemark and Rated Power's pvDesign. And finally, that Q&A session as promised. Let's start with Rated Power. You may recognize the logo over here. Our motto is to accelerate photovoltaics. And right now we do this by providing pvDesign. That's the software tool that can create layouts as the one you're seeing in the background. So what we do is we want to speed up the time to layouts and reduce your utility scale PV plant LCOE. Nowadays, we work with 160 customers. That translates into 1,400 users. And yeah, that's a bit of what we do.
So at Sitemark, yes, at Sitemark, we work on the online platform. So just like Rated Power, we are an online platform. That makes it very easy to collaborate with everyone. We work with asset owners, EPCs, and O&M providers, and we work throughout the entire life cycle of the assets. So we help in the design phase, where we do topographies. We're going to show you that actually today, but we also help during construction, where we help track projects throughout the whole construction life cycle. And then whenever we finish projects, we help in commissioning through thermographies, electroluminescence. And then during the operational phase, we also help our customers keep the visibility on their assets and make sure that the asset keeps on performing. And we do all of that basically through our digitized digital Sitemark Fuse platform. So, but let's not waste too much time on who we are and get started talking about collaboration.
Yeah, I've already had a sneak peek of Sitemark, and it looks as impressive as it sounds.
I take it as a compliment.
Yes. Now let's talk about PV asset lifecycle. I will take the 2 first steps, and Stan, you can take the other 2. So these are our 4 main steps, and how where you can use both tools. So from blueprints to O&M. The first section would be prospecting and surveying, and that's carried out by the development team. So in this stage, what Sitemark can provide is very quality data to prospect and create a survey of the topography of those sites that you will be prospecting. In terms of pvDesign, based on that topography data, we can create a first concept, and you can study the feasibility, both technically and financially, of a proposal. In this stage, the development team will also look at permitting, licensing, etc. So design and engineering is the second step, and this time engineering teams will create designs based that comply with technical spec, outline a proposal, and get into the detailed design, and also create energy estimates. That's also something you can do with pvDesign.
And then we move to the construction. Once actually we've finished the design and we have the green light to go on with the construction, it's all about making sure that plant is constructed in the respective timelines. So getting good visibility on the productivity of the site, of the people on site, sorry, and also making sure that they actually build everything in the correct location, tracking down all of the different trenches, fences, all of that. But I can show you that in the demo later. And then once the site is finished, we typically do the commissioning, the thermography and electroluminescence, barcode scanning, things like that. And then we move into operations, where we move into the yearly thermographies. But we won't have time to show you the thermographies today. But if you want to see them, of course, you can always contact me. I'm happy to do a personal demo.
Okay, so Stan, I think it's time for the showtime. If you want, we can start by checking how Sitemark covers that first step.
Sounds good. I'm going to try and take your screen back. Let me figure that one out. Here I'm coming. Show screen. Bear with us. Sometimes this can be the most difficult technical challenge of the day. It's happening. My computer is giving me a hard time. What?
Sam, do you have a third, like below the microphone, the camera, do you have a third one there? Is it enabled?
Okay, here we go. There was a hidden pop-up that I had to find behind all of the other windows, but I got there. So you can see my screen, right, Natalia?
Yes, but it's a bit shifted to the right. Can you full screen?
I will try and put it full screen. Is it better now?
No, I see blank. So.
Okay, we're trying again. And
there,
now.
Perfect.
There we are. Sorry. Thank you for bearing through that technical glitch. So here we have my browser open. So Sitemark is, of course, available in the browser. We can see this is the project we're trying to build. And we can see we've done a lot of different scans, but it all starts with what we call the pre-ground, kind of the surveying part of the scan. So if I turn off different layers, the first layer I see is Google Earth. It's the same as Google Street View, in which we basically define the boundaries of where we want to build the site. So this is the location of where we think we would like to develop a site. And the drone will come and it will take all of the different photos necessary that I can explore like this, one by one. And all of these photos get combined into what we call an orthomosaic, which is very equivalent to, let's say, Google Earth, except it's much higher resolution. So you can actually zoom in, and if I zoom in here on that house, you can see that we have centimeter resolution, let's say, visually, and that we can explore all of the different elements on site, and that we can also start annotating them. So I took the liberty of already annotating certain stones, walls, so you can really survey from the ease of your office at home and get an idea of what the challenges will be in building a site here. There is, for example, a power line, which I drew down. I also created the power line exclusion zone. And we can also do all of that in 3D. So of course, drones are able to create a 3D model of the site. So here you can see, for example, one of the more interesting parts of the site, which is a big hole that we have. in the site. We can even get the volume of that hole actually, but maybe I'll show it to you in 2D. It will be more valuable. But you can basically explore the site in 3D, in 2D, and you can start drawing up a lot of elements. So what did I draw up? I drew up the power line, I drew up the hole, and I drew up the outline of the site in red, avoiding this annoying zone with stones and different private properties. And I also already have an idea that we have the power grid connection here. So these are the interesting things that we now want to send to rated power, so that rated power can actually work on them. So what are one of the files, before I forget, that's also very interesting to send is, of course, the contour lines that we can send. But more importantly, because that's the way rated power works, the ability to send CSV files of the topography. So that basically describes every 20 centimeters, we will have a point which will describe the height of the terrain. And that's something that you can directly intake into rated power. And so I've already downloaded this and sent this to Natalia before the webinar so that we don't have to wait for another technical glitch. So yeah, that's it on the topography. Of course, I can talk for hours about this, but basically you can make a very high accuracy topography, export it and send it into your rated power software. So I think now is the time to switch screens. But before we do that, I do have a poll question for everyone, so it will appear on your screen. I will stop sharing. Here we go. And my question to you is, how do you perform your topographical service today? Are you relying on satellite data, so Google Earth, which would mean that you have low accuracy in terms of the topography and the heights, but you do have good visibility on large scale elements like private property, but you would miss certain stones and little walls? Are you hiring a land surveyor to come and survey all of your land, but then you kind of lack the visual properties of having the details of what you're looking at, but at least it's very accurate and you can reuse it when you start designing a site? Or are you already using drone imagery today? Feel free to answer. And also, as a reminder, these poll questions will be shared with everyone through social media after the webinar. And I'm personally quite curious to see what the results are here. So Natalia, did you manage to share your screen yet?
Yes, the poll, people are still voting, I think, 60% voted. So yeah, let's, I wanted to say something, Stan. I know you forwarded a 20 centimeters grid accuracy file, but you, is it right that your accuracy goes deeper than that? I remember seeing the 3D with shorter grid.
It is. So we actually have a 1 point every centimeter, but the accuracy, so the positioning of that point is up to 2 centimeters in X and Y and 3 centimeters in Z. So it's quite, I would say it's very accurate actually. And it's certainly accurate enough for the type of application that we're doing with designing solar sites, because in the end, to make it light and usable in your software and that it works, let's say, very easily and snappy, we reduced it to 20 centimeters because that's just already enough. And that doesn't mean because we reduce it to 20 centimeters that it's not accurate, because the height is still very accurate. Yeah. It just means we're taking a sample every 20 centimeters, and that's certainly already enough for a topography.
Very interesting.
How are we doing on the poll?
Yeah, we are closed. So okay. Now I can continue showing my screen then.
Awesome.
Okay, so I think I'm sharing with you pvDesign.
Yes, that's correct. I can see your beautiful software.
Great. So let's start by importing the data Stan provide. So right now I've just logged into pvDesign. This is how the tool looks like. We have a side menu here with our projects, our private equipment database, our price templates, etc. And here we have a list of the projects. Let's say we start from scratch. So we have to create a new one. Webinar Sitemark. So what this is doing is creating another row, a folder where I can iterate indefinitely. Let's create a first design by clicking on this corner. So here I see I'm inside the design process, and that's a 9-step interface that I'm going to follow. The first thing I'm going to do is address this little warning sign that's telling me, hey, you have to upload a KML. So I already converted that DXF to KML. You could do it quite easily using other platforms. So I have it here in KML, and I just had to adapt the naming. So let's see how long that takes. It's now processing it, and the map will zoom in to Valencia, where the project is located. Okay. So now I have my boundary. I'm going to upload the topography. So I'm going to click on upload topography and add Sitemark 0.2 meters grid. So here I just selected my topography, and if I click on show details, we're going to see a representation of that survey that was done. We represent topo with row arrows, and here there's a slider that we can adapt to have the best view possible.
We can recognize the hole that I was talking about on the bottom.
Yeah, actually it would be this part here that has greater slope. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what we also did, and now that you mention it, is establish a restricted area that followed that high voltage line, including the required setbacks, so that no modules are installed there. Okay.
Yes.
So the next, we would go through the next 8 steps. Every input is already has a value. That's why we see a preliminary design here, but we could make it more accurate. We can select our equipment, go into the layout and civil details, topography analysis, grid point, electrical. Potentially we could add a battery energy storage system, energy losses, and finally costs. I'm not going to do all that now. I already went through the process and created all of these different versions of the site to see which one was the most optimal. So I played with the civil works. I played with pitch distance to see which one was the best. And finally, I reached this proposal that I'm going to show you now.
And how do you choose the best site? What would be can you show me how that process goes? Because I understand that you make different types of designs, but of course you want to have the best design. Mm-hmm. How did you choose the best design?
Yeah, so here I had the advantage that I have a price template already set. So the software is also coming up with an LCOE value. So if let me show you that again. If I select, let's say, the ones I've already studied and click on compare, I can see all my designs in one view. There's some values that are highlighted, so which is the option that has more specific production. In this case, it's indicating the tracker one. That makes sense. And then here I would have some values for LCOE. So in this specific case, we wanted to reach that 4.44 megawatts AC. So between all the options we have here, we see that the one with the lowest LCOE was the one that was finally constructed. So this one over here.
Interesting. So you can really compare the different designs on different criteria and narrow down.
Yeah, we have a filter menu over here, and then you would also have some charts to plot out the characteristics and the results. Thank you for the question.
Really... No, that answers my question. Thank you, Natalia.
Thank you. Okay, so very quickly, just to show you some design criteria, we went with the bifacial module, string inverter. We went with a fixed structure. We use a generic one over here, 27 modules per string. We played around with the DC-AC ratio and the pitch distance, and we ended up with a 5.4, I think. Yeah, something like that. And then I want to show you a bit on topography. So thanks that we have the very, very quality data, we can estimate the earthworks that this PV plant is going to need quite accurately. So what we can do here is establish a maximum slope that we want to accept and a limit for the earthworks. So if you see here, we have 3 colors of structures. We would have light blue for the ones that are below our limit. They're good to go. I'm going to install them. And then we have some other structures that were above my limits. And here we will see how many fill and cut volume was needed. pvDesign does this study per platform. Actually, in the detailed engineering stage going forward, they decided that instead of going per platform, they graded the whole surface to 6%. So you will see that now in Sitemark. Grid point, substation, electrical, energy, costs, and that's it. That's what pvDesign does.
Quite impressive. And it's especially impressive to see how fast you can design a plant.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the one of the things we say. It's like we turned 6 weeks of works into 4 minutes. Okay, so here we have the results. We have all these documents that can be exported, and especially for Sitemark, we have one that's very interesting. That's a general layout in 2D in DXF. We also would provide, if the client wanted to do the terrain earthworks in CSV, that's terrain after earthworks. Okay. So next, second poll, if that's okay with everybody. So the question is, how do you, what's your preferred method to carry out preliminary designs? So do you use RTOL, an AutoCAD plugin? Do you do your work manually? You have not purchased any tool, or your company hasn't, or other?
That's a difficult one. I wonder how many others we will have.
Exactly, that's what I'm wondering too. I would love to see who's the other.
It would be nice if we could see it live. Kind of the hype is real. Yeah. I don't know where we stand with the voting. Please vote fast so we can continue on our webinar. Okay.
I think that's
the
closed.
Voting has closed. So you can see my screen, right, Natalia?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. So we're back into Sitemark. To remind you where we are in the story, we did the topography, we imported it into Rated Power, we designed the site. Natalia was so kind to give me the plans, so the design files. So now I will go into post earthworks. So we have already graded the site down and made it into a nice flat pancake. And now the challenge is to import the site design. So what we do is we go to manage sites, and then we go to overlays, where we can add all types of overlays. Of course, we already had different designs. We had vegetation, contour lines, but I can also upload a new design, which is my Rated Power design. And it will automatically ask me what name I want to call it. So I can call it the Rated Power Design 1 or something like that. And it will already guess the right coordinate system, because that's also part of the DXF file that they create. So then I click on OK. And then, of course, it's processing. So that takes typically 10-20 seconds. So I'm just going to bet that by the time I will have opened the site here again, it will have imported it correctly. Let's hope. Worst case, I can use a good old refresh. But if I go to overlays, I can actually see my Rated Power Design 1. Awesome. So the design is imported, and you can see that Natalia's design was able to very accurately avoid the region where we had the high power lines, was able to connect it to the grid. And we can see that also the design that Rated Power gave me is a very rich design. It's got a lot of different sub-elements that we can turn on and off. The substation elements, but also the fences can be turned on and off. And also all of the DXF elements are nicely colored. I can see the electrical works, the combiner boxes. All of that is present into my design. And so I can now see that it fits perfectly. And the next step would be to now start tracking the construction. So if I go to swipe compare in Sitemark, we can actually start tracking. So let's say that we want to track with the 9th of November, and we want to do that with the RGB model. We can see that the trackers are being installed. If we move forward to the 2nd of April, we can maybe already see modules appear. So we can see how the site is evolving through the Sitemark platform, and we can compare that with the design that was created. If I now quit and I move to a bit more of an advanced stage to give you an idea of the added functionalities of the Sitemark platform, I can turn off all the different layers, and I can see we're building the site and we're quite advanced. We're actually adding panels, trackers have been installed, and all of that will be automatically detected by Sitemark. So we detect all of the different piles. We can give you the history of every time we detect such a pile. We detect all of the different structures. And it's also important to say that these will be fused with the DXF. So if you provide us a DXF, and Natalia's DXF will be linked to the tables that we find. And that means that if the table is in a different location, we can also measure that difference. So we check on the correct positioning of piles, structures. So it's about counting, but it's also about quality assurance, let's say. And so all of the different panels are detected. And of course, that's also reflected in what we call the statistics mode, where we track the project completion. So we can see that in this case, on the 25th of March, all of the piles and structures were 100%, but we were only at 40% of the panels installed. And we can even see that in zone 2, we were nearly completed, but in zone 1, we're still a bit behind. So we can compare different zones or inverters. So it's a really nice way of following up on your project. You can export all of that data. And I could talk about it for hours. I could even show you the site in 3D, which I also like. But I think now is the time to move on to the Q&A section, where we will start answering the questions that everyone has prepared for us. So Natalia, I think it's time for you.
Yeah.
But before we do that, actually, we have the third poll. I nearly forgot about the third poll. And it's also one last exciting question, which is, what tools do you actually use to track the construction today? Is that good old Excel? It's a good tool, but of course it's not really adapted to what we need to do, and it tends to be frustrating to input data if you have to count it all yourself. Are you using a dedicated project management tool? Or are you using drone imagery like what we've shown you today for tracking the progress, but also for tracking the quality and the correct positioning of elements? What are you using? Let us know. And then we can move to Q&A.
Yeah, actually, when you were showing the images, Stan, and it really looks like you're on site, so no need to travel.
No need to travel, yeah. I can take you anytime on site, Natalia, if you want. It's a Zoom call away.
Perfect.
Yes.
So
maybe you can reshare the last slide on Q&A, and then we can talk over that one. Awesome. So who's taking the first question? I can take the first question here. So we have a question which is, can you ingest and visualize geospatial data? So KML, KMZ, geotiffs, shapefiles, for example, from ArcGIS and Google. And can you do any querying on these data, like measure distance, etc.? I think that's a question. Well, I'm a bit confused if it's a question for because in Sitemark you can of course do these things, but I'm wondering also, what about Rated Power? I know you're very flexible on these formats.
Yes, we just KML, KMZ, and then shapefiles. It's something that it's very common for our clients to use first shapefiles, for example, from our GIS, and then convert them, and then we can read them. KML is always like the middle step. in terms of topography, right now it's just CSV. Yeah, so the side on Sitemark side?
Yeah, on the Sitemark side, we can export and import. So we can import KML, we can import KMZ, we can import the geotiffs and the shape files. Actually, we can import all of them, and we can also export everything except the KMZ. I think we can do KML, geotiff, shapefile, DXF. So we like to say that we are some kind of an online GIS platform, but we also drive all of the drone data with it. So so it's really focused on solar. And I can see a next question, which is also quite interesting, and that's what altitude are the topographies flown at? So I don't know if Natalia would know the answer.
Nope.
But no. So it depends actually. It depends on the resolution required. So in this case, it was 1 centimeter per pixel, and we were using a DJI Phantom RTK. So this would have been around 30 meters. But of course, depending on the lens and the type of drone you're using, this might vary a little. So it's very project dependent. Also, sometimes vegetation can be a real challenge. So you want to move to a lighter. So you have to fly lower, higher. So, but we can definitely advise you on that.
Okay, I do have a follow-up question on that. Is like, when you do the drone flying, is that something that you provide as Sitemark, or the client comes with those pictures?
That's a good question, Natalia. So basically, most of our starting customers rely on flying with us. So that means that we will send a drone pilot. We have a little under, I think, 196 or something drone service providers in our network, which are able to basically go out there and fly your site. But 60% of our customers today are flying themselves. So a lot of them are transitioning to flying themselves, especially on solar construction projects where you need that weekly flight update. It just economically makes a lot more sense to fly yourself, and especially also within Europe, the regulations around drones have been much more flexible in the last 2 years. So it's quite easy to get your own drone and become a drone pilot. So project managers are becoming drone pilots in that perspective. I don't know how much time we have left. Because
we have
at some
like
point
10 minutes, but we do have 2 more questions. I think I'm going to take the next one. Okay.
Go for it, Natalia.
Great. So there's one regarding LCOE. So someone asked, what considerations are taken to calculate LCOE? So what pvDesign provides is a master template and also the ability to the client to create their own. So it's very flexible, and we base price templates on unitary prices. So we have a huge list of all the units pvDesign will calculate or quantify. So let's say you want to calculate the price of your modules. You set a unitary price that you can link to the watt peak or the kilowatt peak or the individual modules, and that's the final result we give you. That goes, you can make this as long or short as you want, and from that we will take the CAPEX. There's an input for the OPEX annually per megawatt peak, also to bring that value to the present. And then we just do the typical LCOE calculation. So we take into account the energy production, CAPEX, and OPEX. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. I think there's another more. Is there a tool incorporated to calculate shadows? If this is for me, yes, we do our own energy model in pvDesign. Our calculation is done taking the 2D terrain. So actually we will calculate into row shading, great, but if you want to factor in the topography, right now that's a work in progress. What we do have is a PV colada file. So we do export the 3D scene of your PV plant following the terrain, and you can input that file into PVSys to do that 3D shading analysis there.
And that's close to the answer for Sitemark also. We don't do the shadowing, but we can export all of the panels as a 3D shapes in shape files or DXFs, and then you can quite easily import them into pvSys, which is a tool everyone knows how to use, at least for the shadowing. But we're looking actually at also building a dedicated shadowing module within Sitemark. but that will probably not make it this year. It's on the roadmap, but so part of me thinks that it's probably going to be early next year.
Very cool. And then we will stop collaborating that much. No.
I don't think so, Natalia. I look forward to doing more stuff with Sitemark. And I have to say that the reason we are doing this webinar today is because our customers, a lot of my customers are always asking, is it working with rated power? And then when I contacted Rated, they were saying, oh yeah, we also get this question in the other way. So we thought, why not do a webinar and show the world how it's possible? So we're quite excited to see how much customers are going to use now the collaboration and where this goes. In terms of the questions.
No, I'm saying that of course, if this is not clear enough, we're happy to connect with you, the attendees, in person in a separate follow-up meeting and see that process live with all that's in and outs.
Of course, happy to help. I think we don't have any more time left for the Q&A, so we're going to send you the remaining questions to all of the people that have asked questions but we weren't able to answer. We'll get their question over email. Right, Natalia?
Yeah, there's one more that's very interesting.
Okay, if you want one more, we can do one more. One last question then. Go ahead, Natalia.
They were talking about mismatch losses, and if we take into account stringing, we have two options there. So that's also related to Sitemark, because when we do the stringing, that could be imported into Sitemark. So you have two options to do like pitch stringing or actual stringing. And in pitch stringing, you string your modules from left to right. And in actual stringing, you do them from down up. It's symmetrical, so it's the same. So if you select one or the other, the shading and the electrical mismatch is affected. For example, with actual, if you have your strings one on top of the other and you have the first one shaded, we know one of those strings is affected, and then how it influences the one above. Yeah.
That's awesome. So that's taken into account in your loss estimation, basically, in your modeling.
Yes, and then for the energy, yeah. So we will give you like for every step of the way, like how much are you losing. So first you would have near shading, that's actually blockage, like what's the light that's being prevented to reach the module, and then we get into the electrical aspect of that shading, and that would be array shading.
And if we want to know which design is the best, we have to use rated power and compare them, or what?
Okay. Yes, of course. Thank you very much.
You're not going to spoil it.
Stan, it's been a real pleasure to meet you, prepare this webinar, and to have you here with us. I've enjoyed this meeting very much, and we will get in touch with the attendees later on.
What about the recording? I think this webinar was recorded, but are we going to share it, or?
It is. We will share it with everyone that attended today and that signed up but couldn't make it and want us to watch us in a faster speed. That's too an option.
That's okay. Yes. If that's one of you, then contact us.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, then it's time to wrap it up.
Great.
Bye.
Bye.